With Business Banter Plus TV. And I know it's been quite a while since we've done a show. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, all of the above. I am so excited to be here today with Judy Croon. Hi, Judy.
Hey, Elaine, it's great to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I will say I'm not in my office. This is not where I usually shoot from, so people just bear with us. I'm playing with Max today, which is kind of cool. Let me tell you just a little bit about Judy Croon. Judy Croon is an incredibly talented comedian. She's also a motivational speaker. She's a teacher. She teaches, is it improv?
I teach stand-up comedy, but it's
Stand-up
at
comedy.
Second City.
Second City, okay. Okay, and she's also an author, and I actually met her when I went to get some training as a speaker. Judy was one of the wonderful people that was speaking that day, and I have to say, wow, did I hit the mother lode. I'm really excited to have her here on the show, and like everybody else I bring on, we're going to plumb Judy's why, but I know a lot of it's going to be funny, which is why I said today we're presenting funny. Judy, take it away.
Well, first of all I want to say is I'm just looking at the background there, and it almost looks like you have a bar behind you that you might be hanging some gravity boots from. Is this part of your new regime for 2014?
Yeah, I know. I was looking at it thinking, wow, what is that?
It's very futuristic. Very
I also
RoboCop.
think it's open piping. This is kind of a loft. I'm in downtown Ottawa at the moment, not in my usual surroundings for sure. Beautiful view of the city, which you can't see where I'm sitting, but yeah, although they may use gravity boots here, I don't know.
Well, you know, it's always an honor to chat with you, and you know, when we first met, I was so impressed with your work, especially with Google Plus, and just your personality. But humor for us was the common denominator. It was when I was with Saul Jacobson and Steve, and we were talking about speaking and how comedy applies to speaking. But it was just such a great event, and I'm certainly welcome the opportunity to delve a little bit further into the stand-up comedy aspect, because comedy is just so important. I just had a class this past Wednesday where I had a new group of students start at Second City, and that's why you said improv, because typically Second City is associated with improv, but they are also teaching to writing and performing stand-up comedy. So when they had approached me a couple of months ago to join their faculty, I really welcome the opportunity because, as you probably know, because you're such a wonderful teacher on Google Plus, when you have a talent, an ability, you have been honing your craft in something else, the best part to it is being able to share it with others. Yeah. Right? And especially when they have that aha moment, they have that light bulb moment, and a couple of things go off. For me, in stand-up comedy, the thing that goes off is, you might find this surprising, but a lot of the people, even at Second City, who take the stand-up comedy course for writing and eventually performing, the majority of them, I'd say 99% of them, don't want to do stand-up comedy as a living. And that surprised even me. Yeah. They just there's lawyers, there's doctors, mortgage brokers, bankers, and the majority of them say, you know, I just want to have that tool set. I don't want to come across as serious all the time in my profession, and I also want to be able to think on my feet. So that was the thing that surprised me, that a lot of people just didn't want to pursue it as as an occupation, but they just wanted to have it in their tool set. And the second thing that surprised me was that how quickly these people were able to learn to do stand-up comedy. And it was great to see, especially people who say, I'm not funny. I do not have a funny bone. I'm the most boring person in the world. To see them within one class have the rest of the class laughing. And I'm sure you get that same experience with Google Plus when you have somebody who says, I'm not an IT person, I'm not a computer person, and then all of a sudden you've got them doing all these wonderful tricks with Google Hangout, for example.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's really interesting. And I actually happen to know someone here on Google Plus. He's probably in the air at the moment because he's traveling to California from Wales. Martin Shervington actually took a 6-month stand-up comedy course. And he's a psychologist, he does work with Google Plus, he does a whole bunch of things, none of them specifically stand-up comedy, but it was a tool set that he felt he needed. And to be honest with you, I can't imagine a world without humor, so I think it should be in everybody's toolbox.
Well, especially nowadays, always the biggest example for me is so many people are now tuning out of the news because the headlines are pretty frightening. We had one of the scariest headlines happen, a couple of years ago that kind of went under the radar. But Mitt Romney almost became the president of the United States. Yeah. So scary headlines like that, and more people are tuning out of the news. But I notice the numbers keep going up. People are tuning into shows that deliver the news with a sense of humor. So shows like The Daily Show, Stephen Colbert, Leno and Letterman have been doing it for years, Bill Maher. And I think part of the reason is people want to be informed. People want to have that information of what's going on around the world. But I think humor is part of that fight or flight response. And we can't fly away from this world. We all live in the same world with the same headlines, but we can certainly fight it with a different perspective. And that perspective is comedy.
Absolutely. And it almost makes it easier to take when you're listening to a Jon Stewart or Bill Maher. Because they're using comedy, they're still talking about those hard-hitting headlines, but it's almost easier to swallow when you're able to chuckle a bit.
Definitely, definitely. And just this morning I was watching something on BuzzFeed that they, because another great ability of comedy is to dumb down something that's quite complicated. So this whole thing that's happened with Christie in New York, shutting down a couple of lanes there between New Jersey and New York, and people calling him a bully and blah blah blah. Well, it is rather complicated when you look at the story from the beginning to the end, but somebody then did it to the theme of Game of Thrones, and they inserted different pictures from Game of Thrones along the same storyline that the governor is going through right now, and it was hilarious, but at the same time, too, you got the information.
Yeah, absolutely. You get the gist of what it is, but you're able to laugh, too. I want to insert here, because I don't know if everybody knows, because it bowls me over, but you've actually worked with Jon Stewart, and you've worked with all these great people, some of the top people in comedy you've actually shared stages with.
Well, I have to say, Jon Stewart, the thing that blew me away with Jon Stewart, I had worked with him at Catch a Rising Star in Princeton many years ago before he even was doing late night TV, and I was just so impressed with how smart he was, how good looking he was in person, and how nice he was. Yeah. And that combination was just, it was electric. We had a 5-year affair in my mind.
Yes,
but
yes.
There is something to be said about somebody that's very special like that has a message, that's a positive message, but is still tackling some pretty heavy, sometimes scary issues. Yeah. But that's the power of humor. There's something really sexy about somebody that's able to do that.
Oh, absolutely. I think everyone I've ever thought was sexy was either somewhat comedic, if not an outright comedian.
Yeah, for sure, because it's that, it's just, being able to loosen up the room right away, but again, that ability to dumb down sometimes very complicated, sometimes very scary issues. So I encourage anybody, whether you're on the speaking circuit or not, At work, at some point, you will have to do a presentation. At work, at some point, you will have to speak to your peers. And having that in your tool belt, having that tool set, being able to look at something that's not funny, that's dry. And I say to everybody in the class, don't try to be funny. You're not writing for the Tonight Show. We're just trying to pull out some personality. We're just trying to inject some of you, some humanity into that text and make it come to life. And it's just, it was really cute. We had a girl in the class on Wednesday. She was a banker, very quiet, and she said, I just recently discovered this really funny guy, Jerry Seinfeld. And we all laughed. And she said, I just can't stop watching it. He's amazing. And she said, I admit I'm a newbie to comedy, and but I'm here to learn. And I said, good for you. Well, I'll tell you, she had some of the funniest material that night just because she was being herself. She wasn't trying to be funny. I just walked her through a couple of exercises, and because she was being, that's what I try to get across get across to my students. People will laugh at you if you are genuine, if they believe that that material is really coming from you. It's all about the believability factor on stage. So as a result, write about something that you know, write what you know, and the personality will come out of it.
And you also, I think you have to be able to laugh at yourself in order to have people laugh with you.
Definitely. That self-deprecation, Canadians, we're great at it.
Yeah.
And that's where, for example, some of the exercises that we do, the first exercise I'll say to the students is, okay, write a line about something that you did today. Right now, okay, so that I don't want you to be funny, just give us the information. What did you do today? So they'll write down one line, and then I'll say to them, now, what's your darkest response or your most sarcastic response to that line? Right? You did this exercise, right? Yeah. Well, what ends up happening is, so people will write the line, then they'll write a response to that line, then they'll write the next line, and again, write a response to that line. What they're actually doing, it's their inside voice talking to themselves in that sarcastic, self-deprecating, dark, that dark sense of humor. And I mean, I only use sarcasm as one emotion. That may not work for everybody, and I say that at the beginning of the class. However, that sarcastic point of view is usually one of the easier emotions to go to. Yeah. So that's why we do that exercise as one of the first exercises. So just writing, what did you do today? Or what's a story that you want to tell? Don't be funny. Just let's write out the lines of your story. And each of those lines, let's have a response to that story, a sarcastic response to that line. And so as a result, what you end up doing is you have the information, and then you have the response. You have the information, and then you have the response. And when you look at it that way, it's not intimidating. But then when you step aside from it, you go, guess what? You just wrote a setup, and you just wrote a punchline. You just wrote a setup, you just wrote a punchline. You just wrote a setup, you just wrote a punchline. The other key to it is, aside from being believable on stage, I say to students, the other really, really big thing is when you step on stage, own the stage. That's your space. So take your time, and we go through a countdown. I have them come on first class, and I know they're terrified from the beginning of the course. They're looking around going, I can't believe I'm going on stage already. I said, the sooner we get you up, the better. So from that first class, one of the exercises we do is we take that countdown. So I'll introduce them. I'll say, hey, please welcome John to the stage. And I go 101, 102, 103, 104, 105. And in that 5-second intro, own the stage, because along with believability, the big thing is confidence. Yeah. Right? And your audience is not aware that you're nervous until you let them know that you're nervous. So many people that I talked to afterwards said, oh my God, I wanted to run out of the class, I wanted to vomit, I wanted to quit when you told me that I'd have to go up there. I said, you know what? When you were up there, we couldn't tell. We could only tell when you told us.
Yeah.
Right? So believability is really, really important when it comes to comedy. Number 2, confidence. And the confidence comes from material. And the material comes from something as basic as that exercise, which provides the structure. So now all of a sudden you're telling a story, but you've got structure on top of that story. And because you're telling your story, it's believable to you. As a result, it's believable to us. And the third most important thing is, even if you give a bit and you give a line and people don't laugh where they thought you would laugh, because typically students will say to me, people laughed where I didn't think they were going to laugh, and people didn't laugh where I thought they were going to laugh. So aside from being believable, aside from being confident, the third thing is going on even when the material isn't working. And that, again, comes from the structure, and that, again, comes from doing the homework.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's something that probably not a lot of people would think that, in actual fact, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work and preparation that goes into being funny.
Well, it's amazing. You know, a lot of people will say that Jerry Seinfeld is one of their favorite comics. And somebody observed recently, they said to Jerry in a Q&A, a recent Q&A, you know, but I noticed that you're serious a lot of the times. And he says, you know what, I'm serious actually probably 90% of the time. Right. But from that serious 90% of the time is when Jerry is doing his homework. Jerry's one of those comics that, you know, typically in comedy clubs, the comics walk off stage and they're, you know, having a beer afterwards, they're talking about the show. Jerry would have his yellow legal notepad, and he'd already be working on the lines for how he was going to tweak that bit for the next night. You know, how he was going to tweak that chunk for the next night. He would go back to the hotel and be writing out lines, writing out, probably going through the same exercise. What's the information? What's the response? What's the information? What's the response? What's the tag? How many tags can I have to this one bit? Yeah. And people don't see the 90% of the time he's serious doing the homework for the 10% of the time they see on stage.
Yeah, and that's I think that's the big part that I always was amazed at, how much work I thought that comedians did in order to do their 3-minute or 5-minute or 10-minute bit on stage. There's just so much that goes into that the average person really doesn't think about.
The average person doesn't realize that when you go on stage, what you're seeing on stage is probably a 10th of what that person has written. It's maybe a 20th of what that person has written. And the really great comics either are prolific writers, or they have writing teams. You get to a point where, you know, you're somebody like, I don't know, whoever it is. I don't want to give away who's using writers and whatever, but the point is, if you're on tour and you've got to come up with fresh material every year, chances are you're probably going to have writers that are helping you out, because you need that bulk of material to get out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. On that note, I want to say that one thing I find about you, and maybe it's why you're so fresh, you're so well-rounded. You're not only a comedian, but you're an interviewer. Okay? You've interviewed the likes of Joan Rivers, wasn't it Dionne Warwick?
Yeah, Dionne Warwick.
Wow.
Yeah, I was really lucky.
Yeah, that's really stretching the envelope there from Joan Rivers to Dionne Warwick. But you know, Roy Thompson Hall, for us that are Canadian, we who know what that is, that's really a big deal.
Well, again, that was, or it is an example of how comedy it's such a valuable tool. When I originally got into, sort of a roundabout story, but when I was in university, I wanted to be, for the longest time of my life, I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I worked at a vet out in Calgary for 3 years. And then I went to university. In the second year of university, my fruit flies escaped, and that was something like, you know, 75% of my final mark. I was so dejected, my life passion, my life dream out the window. And I just said, that's it, I'm quitting, I'm out of here. And that night I went home and I was watching The Tonight Show. and I saw a comic on stage, and it was Joan Rivers, and I had this bizarre epiphany. I go, oh, that's what I want to do for a living. I want to be a stand-up comedian. And literally, probably 6 months later, I hopped in my car, I drove down to the States for 3 months, and started doing open mics on stage, which was quite a learning experience. I don't know what possessed me. But what ended up happening is, so I came back from that experience, and then I started doing stand-up comedy full-time in Canada with Yuck Yucks. And probably after about 7 or 8 years of doing stand-up comedy in Canada full-time, I decided, you know what, I don't always want to be doing stand-up comedy. I'd like to try my hand at radio. Yeah. Well, you know what, getting into radio is so difficult, but again, the thing that sold me was I had the comedy experience. Yeah. And as you know, I was doing radio in Ottawa, morning radio in Ottawa for 3 years, and it was a lot of fun. I had a great time. But the comedy really came in as a fabulous tool that opened the door for me anyways to get into radio. And that's how, in a roundabout way, that the end of the story is, yes, a couple of years ago I was approached by a promoter if I would interview Joan Rivers on stage at Roy Thomson Hall. And it was so fabulous to be sitting with this person who really was my inspiration. Wow. And again, another person who very, very smart, very sweet. And it was really just interesting to hear how comedy had affected her life and how important comedy was in her life. So really, really a fun time. And again, comedy was never wasted. It was just something else. Excuse me, something else that I was able to use.
Yeah, well, I think it's incredible, and I didn't know that you literally dived out of college and went on the road. Like, that takes, to me, oh my God, what chutzpah.
I think I was just crazy.
Well, crazy's good, right? Crazy's good.
I don't think my mother slept a wink for the 3 months that I was on the road, but she didn't tell me when I was on the road. It's only when I got back she said, you know what, that was just crazy. I go, I know, what was I thinking? Why didn't you slap me out of it? But it was a great learning.
Yeah, and how supportive is that she didn't tell you how afraid she was for you? Oh my God, can't imagine. But what a long way from being a veterinarian.
Well, and again, you use what you have. So as it turned out for me, comedy was my way of contributing something to the planet. I didn't make a great veterinarian. On the other hand, I was able to use comedy and then also use radio to start a fundraiser for breast cancer research, which we did for 6-7 years. We raised about $650,000 for breast cancer research, and we're still doing the event called Stand Up for the Girls. And the second event that I have been able to use stand-up comedy for is something that's very near and dear to my heart. Is something called Dog Star, and that's just trying to find homes for cats and dogs for furry people. And that's that's more of an internet-driven project, but it's been great. It's really fun to go out, shoot some videos, and just voice over, using what I've learned over the years using comedy. And shooting it with a camera and putting it online and trying to find homes for those animals.
Yeah, and that's, I think it's great that you're able to be effective in a charitable group that's important to you, that really speaks to both your strengths, that you so love animals, but having the comedy and having your background in comedy allows you to make the videos great.
Well, I think we're definitely all here for a reason, and you just have to sit back sometimes, and some of those worst moments in your life is where your gift truly lies. And if you let it out, cry, laugh, get it out, you really can make some changes.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're doing that with Google Plus, I mean, there's no way that I would have been introduced to Google Plus had it not been for you, Elaine. And then I started doing hangouts with female comics. I brought you on, and we just had a great time. It was so much fun, and I'm forever grateful to you for showing me that. That really is your gift.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But it's so I think that there should be comedians on Google Plus and Hangouts every day, because to me it's better than vitamins. Comedy is, I think, as important as oxygen.
Yeah.
I really believe that, and I so admire what you do, because it's certainly not an easy life being a comedian. You have to build such a thick skin to be able to go out there and be so vulnerable on stage.
Well, and I'll say it's a lot harder in the beginning than in the end, and that's why I sympathize with the students that start the course. I know how terrified they are. I know how hard it is to get those first 5 minutes, but I say to all of them, guys, gals, if you hang in there, the first 5 minutes, once you have that, you can couch that around your 7 minutes, you can couch that around your 10 minutes, you can couch that around your 15 minutes. And just really working people through the initial exercises in getting that chunk and getting that 5 minutes together and getting them up and running. I mean, you know, the other great thing about a class, and I'll be rolling this out probably in the next couple of months, but what you get out of a class, and I wish that class was around when I had started stand-up comedy, so you get that initial 5 minutes, you get that stage time, but you also get your peeps, you also get your peers, people to write with, people to bounce stuff off of. Mm-hmm. And I've got a great project that's going to be launched, a comedy project that I'm launching that I'll share with you in a couple of months. So it'll be really fun, you know, because you really need that stage time. Yeah. And like you said, comedy is important. Oh my God, if it wasn't for comedy, I'd be crazy.
Yeah.
I am crazy.
But that's a good thing. It's good crazy.
It is.
Good crazy. You also do your videos, your 1-minute self-help videos, which I think are really cool. Did that come out of the work you did in the book, or is this just something else that you must have this laundry list of things that you want to do?
That came out of, again, the comedy made the writing really easy. The challenge for me was just the technical stuff, was learning how to, but it's Video Scribe is fabulous. I recommend it for anybody, and take the time to learn it. I mean, you can use it for free for a week, I believe, and it's really cheap after that. But it was, again, okay, you know, I think for me, my thing that I contribute is I get a message out there, but I hopefully make it funny. At the very least, make it interesting. And so that was just an expansion of that. And yeah, anybody, if you go to judycroon.com, you can sign up for my 1-minute shelf help, my newsletter, and I'm always happy to do those. But that just came out of comedy, came out of radio, came out of just the things that I had in my toolbox. And then, you know, Elaine, that's the other thing I was going to say, that I'm really impressed with people who take the course. A lot of them say, this is completely out of my comfort zone. This scares the heck out of me, and I just want to do something so different. I want to do something that scares me. You'd be surprised the amount of people, it's just a bucket list thing that they're trying. Yeah. Really impressed with that.
Well, I think I admire people that can live in discomfort by stretching themselves and trying on things that are new. You know, just a few years ago, the thought of myself on video was just not something I could imagine. I can't think of anything that is more uncomfortable. But, you know, I was happy to do it and happy to have the help of yourself and other people to make things rock for me. People that are in and around Toronto can go to your site to book perhaps your next time at Second City. Are you doing another course this spring?
I am doing I'm doing this course right now, and this just started, so this is a 6-week course. I'll probably be doing a course after that, and of course, folks, if they want to do something privately, just contact me at judycroon.com, and really it's a simple process. You know, for the 6 weeks that we're in the class, we try and shave off each week. We try and shave off a minute. So at the end of 6 weeks, you can do your 5 minutes on stage. And it's a lot easier than you think, people. If you are feeling like, there's no way I can do that, I know you can. I've seen people who say they're the unfunniest people in the world, and I did not have a bad student last term. So I wouldn't let that happen to you.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. I love that idea. I love the exercise, that first exercise we did on our speaker day about Mary Had a Little Lamb, and some of the sarcastic responses that came from some of the most sort of conservative, straight rod people were absolutely hilarious. Some of them were just crazy.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. It's just taking that line, and just to sort of reiterate what the exercise is, take out the information. What's the information? Mary had a little lamb. Okay, what's your most sarcastic response to that? Oh, I bet it tasted great with mint sauce. I mean, whatever, right? But you're right. Some of the people that were the most conservative had the funniest lines, had the funniest quote-unquote punchlines.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're coming to the end of our time for today. This has been wonderful. We have to have you on again. I'd love to do a group of Canadian comics and showcase how much wonderful humor we have up here.
Indeed.
But I have to say thank you so much, not just for this, but for everything. I'm blessed to have you in my life, and I feel very lucky to be able to talk to you like this one-on-one. Everybody.
Well, Elaine, I'm blessed. I'm super blessed to have you in my life, because you've opened up this whole other world with Google Plus, and I just couldn't have done it without you. So to thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, I mean, everybody knows. I've got to stop saying how much I love Google Plus, because the whole world knows. But it is such a wonderful place, and for me, being able to share the information of wonderfully talented people like yourself, that's such a gift. And I love the fact that we can have funny. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank Judy Croon. I'll make sure and put on the website directions to Judy's website. That's where your book is. That's where they can buy your book and sign up for your courses, or you can get Judy to come and speak to you, because she's absolutely funny. Thank you so much for being with me. This is Elaine Lindsay, Business Banter Plus TV. We'll talk to you next time.